Hey, I'm Niels, and I have a few hobbies, including games and history. When I play these games, I often wonder about the real history behind them, since they're inspired by real events. So I started exploring the history to know a little more, so you know a little more. There are many games about vampires. In some, you play as one yourself, while in others, you hunt these mysterious creatures. Vampires are surrounded by mystique, possessing special powers and unique weaknesses. Over the centuries, the myth of vampires has evolved and spread. Let's dive into this legend to uncover their origins, powers, and tragedies. Let's start with the oldest vampire-like creatures, such as the Ecchimu from ancient Mesopotamia, around 3100 BC. Mesopotamia, located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, is known as the cradle of civilization, meaning the region where the first human societies started farming, building cities, and creating writing. So this is way back into our human history. This Ecchimu entity was seen as a restless spirit that wandered the earth, seeking the blood of the living. You could say it was one of the earliest precursors to the modern vampire. Of all the traits associated with vampires, drinking blood has been a defining characteristic since the very origin of the legend. It's one of the first things that comes to mind when talking about vampires, and it's featured in nearly every vampire-themed video game. Often, it's used to kill prey, but also to replenish your own life. According to legends and myths, this is how a vampire attains eternal life. As long as there are enough victims to drink blood from, a vampire can live forever. In Greek mythology, dating back to the 5th and 4th centuries BC, people started to believe in creatures like Lamia and Empusa. Lamia was a queen who was cursed by the gods and transformed into a child-eating demon. She is often portrayed in later tales as a vampiric creature known for her seductive and predatory nature. Empusa, a servant of the goddess Hecate, was a shape-shifting monster with one brass leg. She lured men with her beauty before attacking and draining their life force. These traits can also be seen in many video games. They are not only powerful, but often skilled in manipulating and seducing their prey. We're now making a leap to a later period in history, where the vampire legend took a dark turn in the 15th century with Vlad the Impaler, a prince from Transylvania. He was infamous for his violent methods, including impaling his enemies on sharp stakes. Vlad ruled during turbulent times, defending his land against the Ottoman Empire with ruthless tactics. His cruelty earned him both fear and a grim kind of respect among those who lived in his time. His nickname, Dracula, meant son of the dragon, and his bloodthirsty reputation laid the groundwork for the legend of Dracula, a character later immortalized by Bram Stoker in his famous novel. Since the release of Stoker's Dracula in 1897, the image of vampires has dramatically evolved. From bloodthirsty creatures of folklore, they have become sophisticated and powerful figures, and even though they still possess all different kinds of power, they're not always portrayed as pure evil, but sometimes more as mysterious. In games like Castlevania, we see a similar figure in Dracula. He is presented as a powerful, immortal ruler, trying to dominate his land with armies of vampires and other undead. In many games, he serves as the ultimate boss, whom players must defeat to save the world from destruction. Titles, such as in the series The Legacy of Kain, show games like Blood Omen and Soul Reaver, where the player explores their moral complexity and the struggle between their human instincts and predatory nature. In the Legacy of Kain series, vampires are woven into rich lore, offering players the chance to experience life as these immortal beings. This evolution has reinforced vampires as captivating and multi-dimensional characters in the world of gaming. Around the 17th century, a true vampire hysteria emerged in Eastern Europe. People believed that the dead could return from their graves and roam as vampires. This led to burial rituals designed to keep the dead at rest, preventing them from returning as vampires. The most well-known ritual was piercing the deceased's heart with a wooden or iron stake. It was believed this would stop the vampire from rising from its grave. Another method involved burying the body with garlic. Garlic was known for its medicinal properties and its ability to ward off diseases. Because of this, people also thought it could prevent the so-called vampire sickness. Additionally, water or salt was often sprinkled around graves. According to myths, demons and therefore vampires could not tolerate water or salt. In extreme cases, bodies were exhumed and burned. Belief in vampires was deeply rooted in daily life and significantly influenced how people dealt with death. In games, these rituals are reflected as weaknesses and threats for vampires. Water scorches like acid, garlic acting as poison, increased sensitivity to fire, and killing by driving a stake or other sharp weapon into the heart. Besides the mentioned weaknesses of vampires, light may be one of the most well-known. Light was not only dangerous for vampires, it also symbolized everything they were against: purity, life, and the divine order. In many ancient cultures, such as Greek and Roman mythology, light was seen as a symbol of the divine and life, while darkness was often associated with the underworld and death. Vampires were often viewed as demonic beings, separated from the natural cycle of life and death due to their immortality. The sun, which supports life and drives away the night, therefore became a direct threat to their undead existence. In games, light has always been a powerful weapon against vampires. Often, the player must use strategies to exploit daylight against vampires. On the other hand, a player taking on the role of a vampire must avoid exposure to light as much as possible. In games like V-Rising and The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, vampires suffer significant penalties during daylight, including reduced health and stamina regeneration, emphasizing their vulnerability in a world ruled by the sun. As we've seen, vampires were originally portrayed in ancient times as demonic or monstrous creatures, and were symbols of pure menace and bloodlust. Over time, they evolved into more human-like figures, though they often remained an evil threat. In our era, however, vampires have been reimagined as beings with tragic and complex stories, cursed to exist between life and death and burdened by the weight of immortality. This evolution ties closely to humanity's fascination with eternal life, one of its oldest desires. Throughout history, alchemists and scholars have sought ways to achieve this goal. In myths, however, immortality is often depicted as both a blessing and a curse, a duality perfectly embodied by vampires. The allure of living forever, paired with the inevitable suffering it brings. As we've learned, this shift in their portrayal began in 19th and 20th century literature. Bram Stoker's Dracula depicted vampires as terrifying predators, embodying fear and danger. However, authors like Anne Rice brought a new depth to the genre. In her book, Interview with the Vampire, Rice introduced vampires as morally conflicted beings, grappling with the haunting dilemmas of eternal existence and the consequences of their predatory nature. This evolution has extended into video games, where vampires are often depicted as deeply conflicted figures. Consider Raziel from The Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, a vampire betrayed and trapped in an endless cycle of vengeance and guilt. Similarly, in the game Vampire, players step into the shoes of a doctor-turned-vampire, forced to navigate morally fraught decisions that test the remnants of his humanity.
No, Edgar, you are not going to die.
And with that, we've reached the end of our brief exploration into the origins of vampires and the evolution of their image. From ancient myths about the undead to modern depictions of vampires, these creatures hold a unique place in our history. Next time you dive into a game filled with vampires, you'll have a bit more knowledge to enjoy it even more because you know a little more. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to support me for more stories about history in games. Also, if you have a suggestion for a historical topic featured in games that you'd like to see in a video, let me know in the comments. See you next time.